Welcome to the pod. I'm Jeremy Pomp, along with your host, Michael Rossiter. And today we welcome Sean Agatep, the co-founder of Vincero Collective. Sean, welcome to the pod. I want to start out with a bit of the origin story. I understand you're with some buddies at Gonzaga and you graduate and move to China for 5 years. Is that
Yep,
true? Why did you do it? How did you stay in China for 5 years? What did you learn? Give us some of that background.
for sure. Yeah. Well, we graduated in 2010. We were all business majors. The economy wasn't great for business majors at that time. So moving to China was the next logical step. So we we had a buddy that studied abroad in Shanghai, and he was going to take basically a gap year and travel around Asia. And then one by one, our entire house, like six of us best friends, moved out to China together. We basically had second college. And a few of us had always talked about starting our own thing. And when you're over there, we got jobs teaching English, which of course 22-year-old business majors were well qualified to do. So we did that on the weekends, and we basically failed at starting businesses until something stuck. So the reason for that 5 years, it was a couple years too long probably, but the first few years were so much fun when all your friends were out there together and you're all learning and experiencing it together. And then it got to a point where it was like, all right, we've been out here long enough. Let's have something to show for it. We got into product development, sourcing, and we launched Vincero on Kickstarter, actually. China was very fun for me until that fifth year when I was the last one left out there because I was doing all of our supply chains and standing up our team and everything. And then all of a sudden, your best friends and everyone that you had known had all moved back. So that fifth year wasn't the most enjoyable, but it was a great experience nonetheless.
What's the origin of Vincero Collective itself?
So the genesis was really we were out in China. We were hustling, getting our ends meet by product development, sourcing, making everything from iPhone cases to just packaging to everything that you could do. We were based in Guangzhou, China, which no one really moves down there for the weather. And so we were out there and we saw all these people launching these products on Kickstarter. And the common thread was no one knew how to actually make a product. And we are the ones sitting out here and we were like, well, the factories are just down the street. Like we already know how to make this product. Let's just make something that we think is really cool that we would like. So we designed a watch that used Italian marble, and we figured out a way to cut Italian marble really thin to less than zero point 0.2 millimeters and put it on the face of a watch and put it on the links of the watch. And that was a novel, unique way to kind of it was a way to flex our product development expertise. We launched on Kickstarter. We got enough traction to run that first production run. The plan was to then just become a very cool accessories brand. So we made everything from belts to leather goods and tested all these different product categories with the same sort of drop pre-sale model. And then the growing consensus was that our first banger of a product was watches. So we might as well just feed and curate that community and that audience and just design more and more watches. It was also at a time when fashion watches were very much in style. This is what, 2014, 2015, 2016. The other problem was that there's only so many ways that you can cut Italian marble so thin on the face of a watch. So then we had to figure out, okay, how do we expand this product category? How do we go beyond that? We figured out a way to then cut Italian marble small enough to where the case back of the watch could have marble. And then that left this weird gap around. And we're like, well, what if we could just engrave around there? Right. So that way you would have some sort of like you could still keep the Italian marble. We wanted to keep that side of it as we were growing the product category, but then you could also engrave it because engraving would be really cool. Again, this was all from a product development side of things. Like we knew just how to do it. So then as we were scaling that up, we bought a rotary engraver. We threw it in the office in San Diego. Felt kind of bad for the marketing side of the office because that's where that side it was. And it sounds like an old school printer. It's just got that janky sound. And so we reached a point at scale to where you could only do 30 or 40 of those in a day, and it was just running the entire time. So then we then worked with a 3PL to figure out how to get a better systemization beyond that.
Wow. And so now 12 years in to this business, is it what you thought it would become?
It's more than what I thought it would become. And I think the cool part, it goes back to what we were talking about with the sentimentality side of it. We reached a point where we were like 6 or 7 years in where fashion watches started to go down in popularity. There's only so many watches that you really need. right? And so we started to develop those product development chops again. We started making eyewear, we made jewelry, we started getting back into the carry category to kind of see what other product categories we could expand to. And then when you're like, all of this stuff is easier to talk about as we're like after the fact, but a lot of this stuff takes time to develop. So part of what we were trying to nail in with our messaging was like, okay, from Vincero as a brand, what do we stand for? We can't really go heritage, right? We don't really want to go prestige or go up in price because that's just a different game we want to play. We don't want to go fashion. We don't want to go performance, like durable, rugged, and everything else like that. And then we were sitting around the office at the end of the day one day, and it was like, dude, I wear three watches. I wear the newest style because I want to stress test and I think it's cool. I wear one that's really cool that I just personally like, that's my style that I'll always wear. And then I have this one watch that's engraved for my buddies from a bachelor party. And it's like, okay, let's really hit in on that sentimentality. Let's hit in on the fact that from a gifting standpoint, guys are very difficult to gift for because ultimately I'm just going to buy whatever I want anyway. So how do you, I'm someone that runs a watch company and a jewelry company. I've got a drawer full of watches and I still wear three because they have like significant sentimental meaning to me.
I love that. I feel like that's one of those things where it's probably very core from the beginning, but then figuring out how to articulate it for yourselves, because it's like a group of friends who are starting a business, then that
Right.
like connection, even the name collective, it's like core of what you're doing, but then figuring out how to articulate it is sometimes the hardest part.
Right. And what we found is with a gifting brand, 40% of our sales are coming in Q4. So you really only have so many shots on goal throughout the year. So then it's like, okay, well, let's just iterate and improve and being okay with it taking longer. I think when we were younger and you're growing super fast, it's a young man's game. So you think you want to scale at all costs. But now we're at a point too where we're enjoying our lives. We're building the business. It's fun to make product. It's product that we obviously care about. It's easy to talk about, and
What Father's Day is 3 weeks out now.
Mhm.
That some bump for you all in the business around that time, but your comment about it being hard struck me because I was driving yesterday and my son let slip what they were planning to get me for Father's Day, and I was
uh,
like, please don't get me like
yeah,
it's funny because it
and
was very sweet. It was like, we're gonna get you a
yeah,
bike so you can ride your bikes with us. I'm like, I've been eyeing a very specific e-bike that I
yeah,
want. Like, please don't buy me a bike.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
I'm curious as we talk about now as you're building the business and thinking, moving from a world of grow at all costs to be disciplined and thoughtful about it. How has that shifted the way that you run the business?
Yeah, so we had a down year in 22. We got punched in the face a little bit, and that put the perspective on getting tight with financials and the numbers and the metrics that actually make sense, and being really, really disciplined there, and then being really honest with ourselves of like, okay, based on those numbers, what are realistic growth assumptions? We're not backed. We don't have any funding. We bootstrapped on Kickstarter. So especially when it comes to like inventory buys, and you've got so much seasonality and cyclicality there, like these are really big shots on goal. So missing on those can be detrimental. And so that shift has been more towards what do we honestly want out of the business? What's a healthy cash position to be? Even if we were to sell this thing, we would still run and do something else. So like, let's just run this business that we're extracting as much cash from a profitability standpoint out of it, still maintaining a healthy growth clip, and not getting over our skis at all.
You mentioned a little bit earlier this differentiation of the product and how it's positioned and what the experience is like in getting a gift from Vincero and what you want that experience to be like.
Well, there's a lot of trust that you put on a brand when you go to a gifting side of things, especially when a lot of our gifts are for men or even men gifting for their significant others. A lot of us guys aren't the best planners. So timeliness on making sure product gets there on time, making sure it gets there as expected is really, really important. And I think the opportunity that you have when you run your own thing is you can just run the customer service thing about like what feels right. What would I want to experience from my standpoint? What just makes sense? Now you have to have some sort of buffers within there in terms of like, okay, reasonably from a financial standpoint, what can or can't we do? We've got a 4.5 out of 5 from a CSAT standpoint. Like, most of the time we blow people away, but from the ops mind of it is like, okay, when we don't do that, how do we actually make it right, or how do we articulate that like, this is the best way forward?
I was noodling through that, and you do engraving, you do this, what could be considered high customization, but
Hmm.
clearly you figured out a way to do that at some scale. If some things are customized and maybe can or can't be done at scale, engraving, for an example, you can tell us, how do you then find other business efficiencies, right?
Hmm.
Like what are those other business efficiencies through automation, through planning, resource allocation, things like that, that allow you those nuances?
Yeah, so the that's a very good question, and I think the honest answer is you have to be okay with doing less. You have to be okay with there's a selection bias and there's a selection decision of, okay, we could do 10 or 15 of these things. We could have 8 of these things open, but what's the most significant channel that we have, or what's the most significant thing? Let's focus on that. Let's do that really well. And then when we have extra time, we'll do these other things. And taking the slow, pragmatic way of just chipping away at it over time. And so when it comes to the efficiency standpoint, especially within planning, being okay to have a lower SKU count, because more of the impact is on the gifting and the personalization, the sentimentality behind of it. So having a lower SKU count and then also coming out with cool limited editions where you have scarcity. So doing sentimentality and scarcity together makes a more impactful brand experience. You have to just do less, right? You have to be okay with doing less, and you have to be okay with not trying to tackle everything all at once, which for me, admittedly, is very tough to do because I'm just a person that tries to just chip away at everything and then get overwhelmed and get frustrated. But simplifying everything is the key.
Really, that is spoken like a true operator. Simplification is, of course, the name of the game of how we do things, because growth growth drives the requirement for complexity. We see this a
Hmm.
lot, right? It's like
Hmm.
we just add more SKUs, or if we just differentiate in this way, it's like then we can grow. And it sort of can work, does work. Like you will find some incremental, but that creates this complexity, which acts as this tax on the business. And so you
Right.
have to figure out, like, are we going to pay that tax? When is the tax too high? And you've done a lot of thinking about this as well, of like how do you build this operational system? Like you think about it a ton, like even from the sense of where do I want people based on my team, whether they're
Hmm.
domestically or internationally, and what's the right
Hmm.
place for work to happen across that. I'm sure you apply that within Vincero as well. Like, how has your thinking on that evolved over time?
Yeah, I think it's just like an understanding of what the business needs. When you first start and you're scaling, you just need people that you can trust, and you're just going to throw bodies at the problem, right? And also, when you're bootstrapped, you're going to try to find it at the lowest possible dollar. When we scaled the team up, we had a lot of mid-level hires based in San Diego. The challenge that we ran into is, as operators, we like to be very hands-on. We like to be able to do, and also within e-commerce, it's a very dynamic work environment. So what we think we need 6 months from now, we don't really need, right? Or the priorities shift or the priorities change. And so when you're trying to build an org chart and a hiring infrastructure, and it's just too siloed and too lateral at that lower and mid-level standpoint, what you do is you lose your ability to hire really great senior people. But then the problem is the senior people, they don't want to do any of the grunt work, right? Because, but then it's like, okay, well, who do I pay? Like, how do I do this? And so, especially with AI and automation, there's a creeping up from the bottom now with all the task work. But what you also can do is you can overpay now your senior people to tackle more because you want to be able to empower them. You, from a management standpoint, have less people to handle and deal with. And then what happens on that mid level is now the value that I'm getting out of that, hiring that out of states from a task level or a function level out of the US just doesn't make as much sense anymore. So the idea was like, especially when COVID hit, in San Diego, you're obviously dealing with California prices, cost of labor is just more expensive. And I remember we were talking with our advisor Tom in one meeting, and he was like, if we got to hire this person anywhere, why don't we just hire them out of Missouri? It's a lot less cheaper. And I remember I'd be like, well, Tom, how about Manila? Why don't we go a little bit further? We've already built up our team, and from a customer service standpoint, why don't we try some of these ops and logistics hires and just go senior level? And the idea being that I don't want to go bottom dollar with those senior hires. I want to, or sorry, with those offshore hires. I want to be able to pay top of market. And the rule is the economics of hiring is that if I've got to pay someone top of market, I expect a way better output, and my dollar just goes further offshore. So hiring out of the Philippines, hiring out of Latin America, building an infrastructure out of South Africa, you're able to find these cool pockets of e-commerce talent that then contributes more. You pay them less, you open up more budget for other things. You can pay your senior people more importantly, and then also the task work is now getting done by AI.
Really tracks. And how do you think about the because we're at Atomic, we have people all over the country. We've kind of got
Hmm.
a center of gravity in New York, but even there, folks are in a few days a week, it's not every day.
Hmm.
There's tension between 996, like everyone should be in the office all day long, 6 days a week, like startup kind
Hmm.
of thing. A lot of us have kids and we're like,
Yep.
actually, like we just want to grind with Claude in the comfort of our own homes.
Correct.
But how does having an international team like throw another sort of variable or dimension into that, like efficiency versus culture, output, and so forth?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good challenge. And I think when you're starting a company, you're trying to build that culture, and there is a need to have people in office, and you also are hiring 26, 27 year olds that are just going to be more, they're just going to learn more, they're going to do better being around people, right? The reality is that our company didn't need to be like that. So personally, from our standpoint, it was like, dude, yeah, you're right, like it's Wednesday, the last thing I want to do is go to a happy hour right now, because because I'm gonna have to figure out all these logistics, and then it's gonna be bad form if I don't show up, and then also my heart's not in to be able to do it. So it's like, all right, let's just go fully remote. Let's simplify everything. Let's also only hire people that have that same mindset. Not in terms of hire people in the same stage of life, but it's like I want to be able to show up, do everything I need to get done, not be micromanaged, not be expected to do all these things outside of what actually needs to get done, and then just enjoy my life outside of work.
Right. You sort of enforce the standard not through the fact that you're sitting next to each other, but because
Right.
you are clear about them and you hold people to them.
Well, and my stance too with hybrid is I honestly think that hybrid makes sense if you've got more than 30 people in a city in a region, because then you have enough people to where the office doesn't feel vacant at all times. We ran into a situation where we were trying to implement these policies while still providing flexibility. And it would be like, all right, guys, we're going to try Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The second I would send that, I would get a Slack message from someone. They'd be like, hey, I've got a doctor's appointment on Wednesday. Do you mind if I come in on Tuesday at 10? Anyways, okay, once we get to the point where we're like in policing and enforcing how many days I need you in office, so this doesn't feel like it's a ghost town, but that's where we're missing the point, right? Like, we're missing the point of this entirely. I don't want to police that. I don't want to do it. Just honestly, get your stuff done, and then everything's fine. So when you take that philosophy, and then that means you can hire and manage people anywhere.
Totally. Yeah, it's interesting in startup culture. It just becomes a shorthand for this kind of performative grind
Yep,
thing.
100%.
And it's like, okay, well, if I need some sort of leading indicator, maybe I can sort of squint at it, but like you sort of want to just look at the lagging indicator of did the thing work? Did the company deliver what they were supposed to deliver? Did it kind of
Right.
all work out?
And then I think with our challenge too, from an operational standpoint, and as the people that own the thing, I've learned that my leadership style is lead by example. And so I would be overemphasizing the amount of time I would put into the office, and the amount of time like it's almost like in a way trying to showcase you're working, but also I own the thing. Like I'm running this thing regardless. So the rules technically shouldn't apply, but I'm also like, making a point. It just wasn't a good situation. And I also think a lot of hybrid situations is, okay, well, we already paid for this office rent. So can you guys come please just use this? Right? Like we'll give you snacks. Like just come in. So let's make it worthwhile.
No, I know, and it's like, okay, what are the representations of that? So it's like if
Right.
I'm like sitting on my couch at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning,
Right.
looking through the pipeline and like trying to like, build a list as one of the founders. That's what I'm going to be doing. Like any second that I
Right.
have, it's going to be like that. I don't think that's like a good standard. So I started at German management.
Correct.
It's like started scheduling slacks to go out at 9 a.m. on Monday
Yeah.
instead of what I used to
Yeah.
do, just like bam, bam,
Yeah.
bam, bam, all the
Yeah.
time with the team. But at the same point, it's like you notice when people are like slacking at 11 p.m. and it's like, yeah, I know that person put their kid to bed 3 hours ago, but like, they have something they got to get done. And so yeah, there's a place for everything.
Well, and ultimately, if it gets done, who cares? As long as long as like you're
That's the
not
true millennial vibe, right? I mean,
right,
I'm right there with you. Yeah,
like
totally.
but also it's tough from a younger employee standpoint. I do think you need to be around around your peers, learning and
Yeah,
absorbing and all this other
this
stuff.
is, this is actually is sort of what you're saying connects for me with like AI, right? So like one of the biggest things with getting the most out of AI is your personal agency. Like,
Hmm.
can you figure out how to use it? Are you interested?
Correct.
Are you self-serving in that way? I actually think where it works is if as a leader you have this like strong bias towards agency, allows you to run like a hybrid or a remote culture because it's like I don't have the same mechanisms of looking over your shoulder to make sure that you're getting the work done. But if I know consistently, like I can trust that you're on it and you're accountable, now that's okay. Those same set of behaviors apply directly to people who get the most out of AI.
Correct. Correct. Yeah. High agency. That's all we're looking for, right? Just getting it done. Like, the point isn't that you've got a task list and you've got things to do. It's like, what's the biggest priority? What's the biggest needle mover? And can you get beyond those tasks to be able to tackle those bigger, larger projects? Or do those tasks lead to the larger projects? And I think that's where there's a lot of gap, or there's a lot of gap in knowledge as well.
Right.
I think that I've just been mulling this a bit as you guys have been talking because I definitely was the type of person that felt like presence in the office was really important. Being there consistently, showing your dedication just by showing up. Like you
Hmm.
were always taught, what was the saying? Is like 80% of winning is showing up or something like
Right.
that, right?
Right.
So being there, putting in the hours. But then I also had this experience in coming to Atomic where I had already built strong relationships with with Michael and others, Neil, and
Mhm.
others who I had worked with previously. So there was that trust already there that we had gained with each other. And I was thinking
Mhm.
about you, Sean, and Vincero, and how you started it with your friends, which is
Mhm.
probably, I'm sure your business class teachers were like, hey, that's a great idea to start a business with your friends.
Right.
You had, I'm sure, a high level of trust, or at least you knew who each other were. You knew where
Right.
strengths were and
Right.
things like that. Did that help in building that foundation, or as you've moved to this kind of more remote, that you had that understanding to work from?
Yeah. Well, I think one, that trust and that foundation, I think, is probably the most impressive thing about our story, is that we've all still remained best friends and that we're still running this together. But a lot of that comes from, because we've been through the trenches together, right? We know how each other thinks, we know how each other operates. There's that inherent trust. And as we've grown and as we've scaled and everything, I think that was one of the problems with managing other people, is because for my partners, I would know what Tim and Aaron were thinking and we're what gonna do without communicating it, right? And we didn't even have job titles within Vincero for the first 4 or 5 years because we were just this three-headed monster that kind of knew how everything would work. But from a management standpoint, that makes it very challenging, because then it's like, okay, well, who do I talk to about this? Like, or who has the final trump card here? So we had to also then put ourselves in a hierarchy within the company standpoint of, okay, final decision, this is how it's going to go, right? And being okay with that and having that trust there, and then leaving the ego out the door. And then at the end of the day, if we disagree, we can always just go get a beer after, but we're going to leave that at the door. One of the things that happened when my wife and I first started dating is we were going out to dinner with everyone and all our friends, and she was like, it's just crazy that you guys, we were there the entire night and not once did you talk about work. I'm like, well, yeah, because like that's just like, we're able, for some reason we've been able to turn it off and to separate it, and I'm very fortunate for that. But now that we're in this age of AI and autonomy and high agency, it's even more empowering, right? Because that trust and that ability to expand beyond that, it's already there, and we've got a decade plus of working together. I mean, I've known Aaron since Aaron, Tim, and I, we all went to college together. I've also known Tim since seventh grade, right? So we've just been around. There's just so much. Now that we're at a different maturity level, there's just so much more that we can do, and we can operate when we're independent but also just like again, it's the three-headed monster, but a different way. I think there's also something in having three of us because there's checks and balances. It's not going to be a partnership where one person is going to get steam. Like there's always like I think that was the three was the magical number for us because we each have our own skill sets and we also aren't always going to agree on absolutely everything. So being able to have those checks and balances was very, very helpful. Especially it's helpful within like, points of high tension, right?
Yeah.
Because no one's ever going to get steamrolled. There's always that balance.
Sean, we mentioned AI a few times,
Mhm.
and I was curious about your journey with AI, and I really started to use Claude 3 or 4 months ago, and I can't imagine doing my job without it now.
Mhm.
Where are you in that journey? Where is Vincero? How are you guys using it, not using it? How are you exploring?
Yeah, so from the Vincero side of thing, I think when something this transformational comes around, the hardest part is just getting people to use it. And it's not like, how are you using AI? It's like, dude, just fucking use it, right? Like just put it in your habit, just like instead of Googling, just use it and just get in the habit of learning it and seeing how it works and figuring out how it works for your workflow. And I think that's also one of the challenges now is that people are trying to explain and articulate and how they use it, and everyone uses it just so differently, and that's totally fine, but there's no way to like standardize and systemize it. So from the company standpoint, we just want people to use it, and we're going to once everyone's comfortable with using it, then you can build in best practices and everything else like that. I think when you try to force adoption, that's where you just get natural pushback. For me personally, it's just high agency hog heaven. I was always the guy that was like building the SOPs, that was like that gets really into the detail. And as I'm like building the SOPs, I realize, oh, it'd actually be more efficient if we could do X, Y, and Z, right? And so then all of a sudden I spend 4 hours building something that probably shouldn't take that long. So I have to limit how much I use it, almost out of I have to control the substance. So otherwise, I just get lost in try in using Cowork and everything else like that because I'm yeah. Claude for me was like a few months ago, and it's like completely transformed how we're able to accomplish everything. Before that, I was like, yeah, this is cool. It's a great research tool. But like from a practical use standpoint, like I would really want it to be able to help me like execute on tasks or get better at matching my voice. Or there's all these nuances in that I use Slack and Drive and all these other tools slightly different. So I can never like all these platforms try to get you to work within their funnels. And that's also why we've loved working with Atomic is because like you guys just were like, hey, how do you do this? We're just going to observe and we're just going to mimic what you're doing. And then we're going to tweak and improve it over time.
Yeah.
That same exact approach is exactly how people should be using AI.
I was in the same vein as you, almost using it like a Google, right?
Right.
But once I began to understand, and it developed over time too, the ability to connect your email and
Right.
all those sorts of things to it, your calendar, the power of it being able to get tasks done for you as an
Hmm.
operator
Right.
myself, that's where I started to see the value because it was
Right.
because talk about operating efficiently,
Hmm.
effectively, you're able to get more and more and more work done and knock things off your list
Right.
rather than just using it to learn something. You're actually getting work done, and that was really powerful.
Well, that and I think the ability to tweak and adjust in real time is important too, right? Step seven changed just slightly, right? And you're like, hey, I got to go back and so the ability to then just have that more dynamic capacity to where then you're not so much spent so much time building how describing how to do tasks, you're able to manipulate and change it in real time. That's really for me the empowering thing about it because I'm very detail oriented. I like things done a certain way and then getting done and going back and one having other people expecting other individuals to operate the same way that I do is challenging, but if I can get the robots to operate exactly how I want to operate, then that's exactly the world I want to live
I'm right there with you. We have a lot in common.
in.
Well, Sean, thanks for your time. Thanks for the extra time. You've got a dog and kid to deal with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pure chaos on the other side of this door.
I got a dog visiting us, and along with my dog, I locked them in the garage because I knew they'd be barking and going crazy the whole time as with folks on the walking trail behind my house. But
Right.
anyway, thanks again for your time. It's great to see what you've built. It's been great for me, just speaking from the heart, in preparing for this. It's been really cool. I've found it really fun. So thanks for
Appreciate
agreeing
it.
to do it. For your
Appreciate it,
time. We'll
Jeremy.
talk soon.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good.
Bye.